We're working. Right. Hi, Ed, Hannah. Thank you very much for joining me and for contributing to this chat that I guess I'm trying to orchestrate for a webinar that's going to go out in about a week's time now. The good news is that people will be able to tune back into this whole conversation. I'm sure there'll be bits that will be really interesting. And I guess to try and help contextualise it, it'd be great if, I know a bit about both of you, but if Ed, perhaps you could share your current context. Actually, I don't know where you worked pre-Dubai, so.
Yeah, so pre-Dubai, I was in Lincoln Christ Hospital School in Lincoln, a secondary school there. Yeah.
So Jill
I did.
Barker was my head teacher. Her husband worked there for years, didn't he?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I did. So I did my teacher training there, GTP, and then came straight out to the UAE following that. So I just did a year there. 6 years at my first school in the UAE, at Sharjah English School, British curriculum school. GCSEs, A levels, and then the last 3 years I've been at North London Collegiate School, Dubai, which was a brand new school, complete new setup from ground zero, and that's IB curriculum, International Baccalaureate. So through school from 3 years to 18 years old, primary years program, middle years program, and we're a through faculty. So PE teachers in our department teach little ones all the way through to the older ones.
Really exciting. I think if we were to redesign schools again from scratch, would you agree on the premise that an all-through school makes a lot more sense?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. The leadership opportunities and the mixing is brilliant. You know, for the younger ones to look up to the older ones, but even our oldest junior students go right down and teach the little ones. I know Hannah works in a similar school as well.
And when you say little ones, how old are they when school starts?
3 years old. So yeah, so 3 years old. The leadership really starts with the sort of 6-year-olds. We'll do playground leaders, you know, with the 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and then we get our sort of 10-year-olds lead sports days and organise the first school sports days and things like that. And then Key Stage 3 will lead the junior school sports days, and they'll just run that show for us. So usually in a secondary school, you just get your sort of year 10s, year 11s might be the leadership group, you know, the Junior Sports Leader Award or something like that. But yeah, with a through school, those opportunities can come in much earlier.
And to be honest, that's shifted a little bit now with so much pressure on exams. Again, something I'm hoping might change as a result of COVID is, you know, it's been really hard to get year 10s, 11s, 12s, 13s to support leadership and volunteering stuff on the curriculum.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're
mine's doing that almost.
Yeah, we're told more or less to avoid that year group for the leadership stuff if it means taking them out of lessons, which, you know, which is understandable. You know, we're a results-driven school like many. So.
And just quickly before we introduce Hannah, you mentioned following a British curriculum and then an IB curriculum. So what's the difference there for people that aren't aware?
So the British curriculum is very, from my previous experience, you know, was skills-based, performance-based originally, wasn't it? Level 1, level 5s, things like that. Lots of knowledge-based stuff. You know, the GCSE is all about knowledge.
Yeah.
Whereas the IB is much more contextualized and holistic. So you give students what they're learning in PE. There's always a link to the wider world and how it can. What we're learning here today, how does that link to technology, or how does that link to other cultures? So we literally, our dance lessons in junior school might revolve around particular cultures each lesson, rather than just doing dance. You know, you might do a Maori dance, you might do an Indian dance, things like that. So the IB is really, and the assessment is completely different. There's 4 strands and only 1 strand is performance-based. So there's lots more knowledge, planning for performance, evaluating performance. So every child has far better equal opportunity to do well, not just the physically able.
Yeah, sounds like you think highly of it, and you, in terms of a progressive curriculum, you think it works.
Yeah, what we try and do, because we're all, in my department, all from a British curriculum, all UK teachers, we try and take the best of the British curriculum and the best of the IB. We don't go extreme either way. we sort of quite middle on those, and because we still think all the knowledge and everything is really important, and we don't want to move away. You know, kids need to know about the body and what happens, and they need to know the rules, so they can access more. But we also like that it's not all about that. You know, what you do here in PE can help you in other areas of your school life and external school life. So we try and tap into that.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Ed. And Hannah, what about you since you left the UK?
Yeah, similar context to Ed, really, apart from obviously the school that I'm in. I kind of joined it on its 4th year. It's one of the largest international schools in the world. So we've got 4,000 students from same as Ed, FS1 to post 16. So 3 years old to 18. Very similarly, apart from we don't run the IB curriculum all the way through. We run on the national curriculum, follow the English system up until kind of GCSE and post 16, and then students follow pathways. So they'll either do the IB pathway, the A-level pathway, or the BTEC pathway, depending on obviously what suits them in terms of their current learning.
And I guess with a school of that size, you've got that flexibility to try and I know for example, if I just taught BTEC or Cambridge Nationals, a school in the UK has to pick one that works best for the majority of their students, rather than going, you know what, there's some great modules in here and we could have students picking from that selection.
Yeah.
So you're able to
I think as well, because we teach in a very international, diverse environment. So we have students from 200 different nationalities, and obviously then depending on what they do after, most won't stay in Dubai to do their higher education. So depending on what pathway they want to choose, parents and students are often keen to make sure that post 16 provision especially is kind of driven towards their next step in life, wherever that might be.
So would you say that compares quite a bit to the independent school system here, in terms of it's very much preparing people for that next step, whereas perhaps sometimes in the state system we're not as focused on that?
Yeah, I think working in an international school, that is definitely the kind of driving force in terms of making sure that students are prepared to go in. Our kind of motto is like world class, world ready. So they're really trying to be prepared for that next step in life.
I like that. I watch a lot of sort of Sir Ken Robinson and people that are talking about that evolution of the curriculum and of education and how it needs to look different, and why does it still look the way it's always looked. So
yeah, and I think like Ed said, kind of that, I think that's what the IB curriculum is, a very much concept based kind of program. So it is more about giving them those skills to kind of do whatever they want to do in life, rather than, right, I'm really good at biology, I got the best grade in my class, now I don't really know what to do with it. It should be that kind of that education system provides them to then be able to follow whatever path that might be. If it changes 27 times, then it changes 27 times. But,
So if either of you were to come back to the UK or to move on somewhere else internationally, what one bit that you're doing at the moment do you think you'd want to take with you? What's the nugget of gold that you think every PE curriculum has to have a bit of this in it?
For me, the biggest thing I've learned here using 2 different curriculums is, if I went into another school and I was head of department or not, I'd be really passionate about saying that the assessment in this curriculum must not be weighted towards performance or skill. That's got to be a part of it, certainly, but we need to have an even balance of different thinking skills, different problem solving skills. I think lots of departments do that, but there's still lots of how good they are at a particular sport determines their grade, and that's just for far too many students not going to provide a positive experience, and for when they leave school they're not going to choose to be physically active. So that would be the one thing for me that I'd take. So that whole measure what you value, not exactly. Not what's easy to measure.
I think similarly to Ed, is kind of going away from that traditional P model that maybe our parents, or maybe even some of our friends who experienced maybe not the highest quality PE when they were younger, moving away from that model and kind of realizing that PE is actually probably the driving force in most schools. in terms of providing that well-being and ensuring that students actually leave with that kind of attitude that they have got the tools to lead a healthy, active lifestyle or become an elite athlete, whatever they might be doing. But it's kind of our job to provide that curriculum where they can find a passion of some sort, whatever that might be.
Okay, perfect. And so it sounds like sort of during early years in primary, PE would feel very kind of play and exploration and fundamental movement skills driven. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, go on, Hannah, you go first.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're trying to drive in terms of ensuring that students have fundamental skills. Like we said, have students from loads of different backgrounds. Yeah. And one of the things, I primarily at the moment work in the secondary part of the PE department, but I'm moving into a job where I'm going to be covering the whole school, and looking forward to that in terms of, I really think it's important for us to build from the bottom up, because what I don't know about you, Ed, but what we often find is students join us in year 7, often their fundamental skills are just not there to even go into those game situations. So you have to kind of go back to ground zero if you want. So I do think it's really important that initial curriculum and continuing up into Key Stage 3 for certain students still builds on those fundamentals. Because like we said, if the real reason for PE at the end of the day is to ensure that students can lead a healthy, active lifestyle, if they can't leave school and they still can't run, catch, jump with confidence, then if, for example, the only thing they do outside of school is maybe go to a fitness class, if they don't have the confidence to even think they have the skills to do that, then that will just shut it off for the rest of their lives. So I think really building on those fundamental skills and moving away from, like Ed said, that kind of sport-specific approach is really important.
Yeah, we're fortunate next year we've got 2 early years specialist PE teachers in our department. So we're really focusing on that area of the curriculum and investing a lot of planning in there. We've actually, they used to have 2 lessons of swimming a week and 1 lesson of PE. And next year we're changing it to 2 PE and 1 swimming, because we feel that if we can develop more fundamental movement, just like Hannah said, I won't repeat it, but then they can access more. And the more they can access, the more chance they've got of enjoying it, the more chance they've got of finding something they're passionate about. And so that investing in that time of their education is huge. And as Hannah said, teaching internationally, families move so much and they change schools quite frequently. It's very rare you get a student and you get them in, year 1 and you keep them till secondary school. It doesn't happen. But you just got to invest quality PE when you can. And I think, fundamental movement's a big part of that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, going into kind of the PE field, a lot of teachers in the past, kind of most PE teachers have normally been successful at sport without really thinking about it. So we kind of naturally have those fundamental skills and we didn't need to be taught them. Whereas I think sometimes that means that when planning curriculums originally, sometimes it may be forgotten about how key those movements are. But I think it's really important how it seems to be a much bigger focus at the moment in terms of really building those curriculums at that primary stage and prior to that.
Yeah, and I guess to look at that in another subject, the best mathematicians don't always make the best maths teachers, do they? So sometimes being only a page ahead of, I often think it would be great if every PE department had to have a member of their staff that didn't like their PE experience and perhaps didn't really thrive and flourish in the world of sport. And so that would make us look at it through a different lens, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, Hannah, you were saying largely in a secondary setting. So what does a typical secondary PE lesson look like? I've heard the sort of the split of swimming and PE at primary. What allocation?
So at the school I'm currently at, we have Key Stage 3 students get 2 hours of PE. And we're quite lucky that that's a full 2-hour block. So really get time to kind of really progress different areas. In terms of, we moved a couple of years ago to a setting model, which meant that trying to prepare students for whatever pathway they're going to choose. So we have a skill set where that's really preparing the students for GCSE. So they do more of the core sports and the sports that they can compete in terms of the GCSE pathway and in terms of what we have available to us in the UAE, as well as really trying to build on their theoretical knowledge, preparing them for those GCSE topics, so physical training, the body systems, etc. And then we have 2 sets, a girls set, a boys set, which follow kind of a more traditional route, but at the same time having those opportunities to develop different kind of cognitive skills in more depth. And then we have a fundamental group that follows, like we said before, continuing to work on their fundamental skills. So that kind of pathway has really allowed us to provide a more personalised provision to different students. Within those 2 hours, there is, like we said, a theoretical element, not necessarily sitting writing down, but trying to build on one topic, whether that be the body systems or whether that be, for example, the muscular system lends itself really nicely to gymnastics. So if we were doing gymnastics, we'd be teaching the muscular system through that unit, as well as obviously developing their core skills within that.
And everyone would leave the school with some of that knowledge, or your what do you call them, the fundamentals pathway, they'd still leave with that content. Even
so there's still the element. All students get a theory assessment each term, and the grading system, the assessment system at the moment is based more towards what GCSE looks like. So we take a percentage of that test, and then the sports that we do or the topics that we do get averaged out to then build one score. Not necessarily the right way to do it. Currently looking at the hand heart head model, so it may change, but I definitely think in terms of the value of the subject with parents, it's really important, and also kind of giving students a greater understanding of themselves, mind, body. It is important to have that theory element in there.
Yeah. Okay. Anything to add on? Add on that?
So our junior school classes and senior school classes have 3 periods of PE a week, a double lesson and a single lesson. The single lesson is quite games based. We've only 40-minute lessons, so they get there and we get them straight into games, and there's frequent intervals for often small-sided frequent intervals for discussion, reflection, tactics, things like that. But yeah, play-based, let's just play. The double lesson is more our assessment lesson. It might be more focused around knowledge, around evaluation, planning, things like that. We don't stream classes, they arrive as their class. So there's a real mix. Reasons we do that, because it moves away from being particularly bothered about how good particular students are at sports. And we feel as teachers, as practitioners, it challenges us more. It keeps us sharp with differentiation and things like that. If you've just got a really great group or a physically weak group, then you don't really need to differentiate as much. So we enjoy teaching like that. And this model of like hand, heart, head is we just really like that concept. And I think in every school you can sort of make and apply your own assessment around that.
Yeah, we do a lot actually with schools I'm working with about grouping by motivation, as in what the students' desires and aspirations are, rather than by necessarily ability. What do they want from PE? That's
kind of similar to the approach we've got. So, for example, what we found with the skill setting in terms of the GCSE, some of those students didn't want to necessarily move into that top skills group, even though they technically could be there, because they didn't want to be in that environment. So in that time, we took individual needs, and if they actually feel more comfortable in a different group, then that's where we put them in, so that they can then stay engaged and follow that pathway. And at the same time, some of the students who we'd expect to be in that top group, because those other kind of strands were added into the assessment, they actually should be further down. And then it really gave them an incentive and a drive to push up and not just kind of coast. Because I think a lot of higher ability students are sometimes allowed to kind of just coast in PE.
And when you say higher ability, you mean practical performance higher ability?
Yeah, in terms of performance-based, yeah.
Okay.
The ones who kind of maybe go into PE thinking this is going to be my lesson where I can excel and really, really thrive, but maybe aren't really pushing themselves to look at how they can improve further, not just performance-based, but with those other strands.
There's actually a lot of evidence to say, isn't there, that the people that develop early specialisation, they struggle later because everyone else has to work hard, particularly if physically they're quite strong and fast. Others have to work hard on their skills to keep up. That then once they have their growth spurt, suddenly the tables turn in it.
Yeah, that is what we talked about before in terms of kind of giving students the opportunity to fail, and sometimes those students, like you said, those higher ability students never experience failure in PE. Therefore, it's really important to kind of push them outside of those comfort zones.
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. And what about right now? So we're recording this, middle of May. What does PE provision look like? I presume your lockdown kids are at home. You're at home.
Yeah, we're in lockdown at the moment. I'll let you go first, Eddie.
That's all right. So we've been teaching online now for 8 weeks. Haven't stepped inside school for 10 weeks. Got another 7 to go, I think. So we're over the hill, hopefully, touch wood. But yeah, the junior school, it's Ramadan here at the moment, so the timetable's been reduced. But if we look at after Eid, 2 lessons of PE a week for the junior school, 3 lessons of PE a week for the senior school. They'll follow their usual timetable. Senior lessons always start with a live component. That live component is often lots of Q&A, explaining the assignment, modelling it live, going through how to complete the work. Online quiz, I'm sure Hannah will talk about quizzes. And then they're set off to do their work. So we usually spend 30 minutes or so talking online with our class, and then we set the assignment and we'll see them next time when they've submitted their work. Whereas the junior school is more asynchronous, pre-recorded, because the feedback from families was they're not as independent and can sit down and do the work like the seniors. So they need to know it's there, and when there's a convenient time for the family to do that physical activity together, they can do. And with the 2 lessons a week, one might be a skill-based lesson, coordination or something like that. And the other will often be a fitness-based, session or challenge.
And when you say assignments, give me an example of assignment, because I hear assignment and think BTEC, pass merit distinction, and that's not what you mean.
Oh, right, okay. No, not exactly. So for my year 7s, currently, they're doing a health-related fitness unit. So they've been designing their own circuits first. They've been learning how to take their pulse. They've been looking recently, calculating training zones. And we're fortunate, lots of them have got phones or smartwatches and things like that. And they're sharing their heart rate data, and we're talking about what that means. And we're gradually building that up. So this has been a big positive to this whole lockdown situation, because we would never spend as much time as what we are doing on the theory and the knowledge, whereas lots of our students, our school, are really intelligent. We're quite an academic school, and they're not practically physically strong, but they are flying at the moment with this physiology. We're teaching them GCSE stuff in year 7, and they're lapping it up. They really are. And I'm really pleased, because I've discovered this whole new group of kids that are now really excited about PE, and I'm getting excited with them. And then I hope that when we go back to the new norm, that we can keep that component there alongside the practical. And I've got lots of ideas on how we can do that, but we won't go into that just now, because I'll be talking forever.
Blended PE model of trying to keep some of that rich learning that is actually most likely to lead to that lifelong participation, rather than just
definitely.
Moving. Yeah, cool.
Yes.
Hannah, what about you?
Yeah, very similar to Ed, to be honest. The primary are doing a similar thing where the PE teachers are recording lots of content, and it's getting sent out with their class teacher, and then they're doing it at home in their own time. There's got YouTube channels that they can follow, and lots of different ways to try and engage students in keeping skill-based activities but at the same time maintaining kind of that raised heart rate at some point in the week. And then in terms of the secondary, very similar to Ed, we are doing a live element to every lesson, but the vast majority of the lesson is pre-recorded. Because we're doing Ramadan at the moment, for our fasting students, the practical part of the session isn't compulsory, but after Eid it will be. And then students are being given a bit of a theory element, the practical element, and then, like we said, a knowledge check at the beginning and a knowledge check at the end based on an online quiz, which they're really engaging with at the moment. And like Ed said, it's really good to see how that's kind of what we saw when we added the more theoretical element into P anyway. But it's really showing students how valuable kind of the theory behind what we're doing is important.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I feel like we've probably resisted that element of theory learning in our subject and been desperate to try and keep it as practical and MVPA and active as possible. And now we're perhaps realising that maybe we could do some more of that as long as that inspires them to go out and do more on their own.
Yeah, I think that's it. Sorry, go on in.
Thanks, Anna. We're always conscious of maximising movement time, and that's our job. We've got to make a move. They sit too much these days with all the technology and things. But when we're back in school, we've now got these, with Microsoft Teams and things like those platforms, we've got these amazing e-learning platforms now where we can discuss theory within lesson through a practical lens, talking about gymnastics and the muscular system like Hannah mentioned. And then you can set quality homeworks now, and the students their IT skills and engagement with that, they're used to it. It's normal. Whereas before, if you set homework on the muscular system and a test in PE for a year 7 class, they'd look at you very strangely. So that's going to be a big positive for this.
Yeah, and I guess you've nicely already started to talk about this, but by means of a bit of a wrap up, I'm always the optimist. So is there anything that you can see that will be good for the future of PE that may come from this experience? What one thing are you hoping for the future of PE? Hannah, if I pick on you first.
I think for me it's really that I've been having a lot of discussions with my current and new department, and the real thing is that I think we will never as PE teachers be gifted this kind of time to kind of reflect and redefine what we're doing again. We always get to this end portion of the year and we're always like, yep, so this is the year when we're going to make sure everything is how we want it to be. We're going to make sure the curriculum is replanned, we've got all the resources ready and we're good to go. And then, like we all know, life becomes very busy, we get our time taken away for other things in school. And I think this is kind of, what if one good thing's come out of this whole thing is that we're actually having a bit more time to kind of look at our current practices and redefine what we're currently doing without kind of being scared that we haven't got the time to implement it.
Yeah, it's given us time, definitely, yeah. Anything to add to that, Ed?
Struggling with that. I think the PE world has certainly become way more connected because we've all been sort of lumped in this really difficult situation of how do we teach our subject, and through people like yourself, Will, and lots of others online and Twitter, there's now all this connection and new people have come in and fresh ideas and innovation. So that's a big plus, which is going to continue and roll over. But yeah, the big thing for me is going to be the focus on the embedding more opportunities outside of the practical for our students, using these online platforms, not forgetting about them. And as PE teachers, we've all been upskilled. I've found new ways of assessment online through different websites. We're effectively YouTubers now at my school as well. We can edit videos, and we've got this whole online learning platform that we can utilize for non-doers, for students that are injured, ill, absent. We can engage every student now, whatever their situation.
Brilliant.
I think schools and parents as well are really seeing the value of PE. I think when that kind of ability to go and be active as you please kind of goes away, the big call from schools has been, we need to get students away from screens, we need to get students active. And I think it really has been a time to kind of, for us to sell our subject, like Ed said, in many different ways that we haven't had the opportunity to do before. So hopefully that really continues to move forward.
I guess it's raised the profile, hasn't it? And it's created a void now that as a PE profession we can step into and get excited about fulfilling the want of that daily meaningful movement, I guess. So this has been really helpful. Thank you very much. The other bit that I wanted to thank you for, I know, Ed, both of you have given up your Saturday to tune in with me now, but I know you've also been giving up quite a bit of your Sundays to offer some online training. I've certainly enjoyed joining into the PE at home and the exam PE and some of the others that you've been pushing out. Any plans for more, and where can people find that?
Yeah, so we're part of an organisation called DASA, the Dubai Affiliated School Sports Association, and we try and do lots of professional development within that association. It has about 80 schools. But we have a YouTube channel called DXBPE. Just type that into YouTube. All the webinars are uploaded to there, along with online tutorials to use different assessment tools and things. There are plans to do more. I think on the horizon, we were having a few weeks off because we had an intense period of quite a few. But we're going to be looking at what will assessment look like at the end of this online learning journey. Do we need it? Are we going to have it? What's it going to look like? And also looking at next academic year, what is PE going to look like? We don't know, obviously, but just a conversation and idea generation for that. But yeah, at the moment, we're trying to sort of tap into lots of the other things online as well through people like yourself.
Thank you very much, both. Thanks for your time.